I normally edit out. There we are. We're live. Hi
Awesome.
everyone, my name is Hack with Atlas Online Solutions and Atlas Agency Launch Lab, and today we're here with Mr. Phil Ballier in this nice and short uh, podcast that we do. This is trying to get to the point and open up the journey of fellow agency owners. So hopefully anybody watching can get some of their questions answered. Maybe they didn't know that they had these questions. I think it's some gold nuggets for people who have been in their shoes and are now a little bit farther along. So without any further ado, Phil, please introduce yourself.
Hey, Zach, thank you for having me. My name is Phil Balliot, and I am the owner and founder of the Guided Growth Syndicate.
Is it, how do you pronounce your last name?
Balliot, just like it's
Okay.
spelled. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it was French and it was like an A on the end.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't like to pronounce all the letters, but I was, it's Balliot.
Gotcha. Perfect. So you're originally from Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, yep. We're from the Lehigh Valley originally, and
Yeah.
it's about anywhere between hour and a half to 4 hours away from Philadelphia, depending on the Schuylkill Expressway.
Sure.
But yeah, we've lived in the Florida Panhandle now for the past 6 years.
Nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Excuse me. Why'd you make that move?
My wife and I both have always wanted to move south, and she wanted to be near a beach. I wanted to be in a little bit of a lesser population density. And when you put that all out in a Venn diagram, you kind of get the panhandle of Florida. And
Gotcha.
so that's where we've been calling home.
Well, Florida is definitely the place that I would choose for, less population density.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I would probably call myself an introvert, and it actually works out really well doing marketing. And it sounds kind of crazy because anytime anybody thinks of sales or marketing, they think of like used car salesmen or people yelling at you, buy this now and all that. But really, it helps because it's all about the buyer, right? You want to make the journey all about them. So being an introvert is actually kind of a superpower because it allows me to, I want to hear their story as opposed to telling my own. So it allows them to talk and get out what they want to say, and it served me very well.
Very cool. That's definitely the opposite of common thinking, right? You mentioned
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I would. Yeah, until I started doing this, I wouldn't have thought it either.
Cool. Yeah, definitely with sales, it's get them talking, keep them talking, see what we can find out, right?
For sure, absolutely.
Tell us about the transition moment from the rat race to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so that was not smooth at all. In 2021, we had a baby, and I did biomed for 16 years. I worked on medical equipment, and it was a great job. Don't get me wrong, but it was just, it wasn't a passion of mine. It was just something I did, and it started occurring to me after my daughter was born. I'm like, well, now we're going to have to pay for childcare, all these things, and it really didn't make sense to keep doing what we were doing, and I'm like, man, there just got to be a better way. And so we really didn't have a plan going into it. It was just, we're going to take care of the baby. And so I started looking into like opening up a pizzeria, different things like that. And that led into looking into marketing, because you need to do that to open a restaurant, or at least market the restaurant and stuff. And I was like, hey, I'm actually pretty creative. I'm good with writing and stuff. Maybe this is where I ought to be. And that's just kind of how it happened. There was no like forethought to it. It just sort of blossomed.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you choose pizzeria?
I love Italian food. I love to cook. It was that or a brewery, and I just figured that the pizzeria would probably be a little easier to get going.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we experienced the same thing. We had a baby at the end of January of 2021,
Oh, cool.
2022. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the size of a 5-year-old, so it's hard to it's hard to see, but she's almost 2. So we've been in that boat. It's like, oh boy, this is more expensive than we planned out for. What do we do?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that was it. Like my paycheck alone would have gone towards her childcare, and
Right,
it's like, why would I work 40 hours a week to pay a stranger to watch my kid?
right,
Like that just didn't make sense to me.
right. And then you get to the spot where it's like, okay, now we have to pay, for diapers and stuff. I should buy
Mhm.
stock in Pampers. I mean, that's
Tell me about it. Yeah,
um, have all this added cost, and then you go down to one income stream, and it's like, oh, that's kind of tight.
exactly. Yep, for sure.
um, let's see. So you mentioned that you're going to do pizzeria, and then you got into marketing because you have to market a restaurant.
Mhm.
Was that sort of the whole reason, or is there more to it?
No, I mean that's sort of how we ended up going in that direction. And initially it was just copywriting because
Okay.
I really enjoy writing and stuff like that. So I was like, we're just going to stick with that. And I was doing the freelance thing for a while, and that was okay, but it was really challenging. Freelancers face an uphill battle, and especially like I have this technical background, and then going into something like this, and not really having any credentials, not really having any uh, testimonials or anything. Like I'm just this
Yeah.
guy that and it was just such an uphill battle. And most entrepreneurs that I know, they don't want to come to you for copy and then go to somebody else for their graphic design and then somebody else for like you
Yep.
want to make it as simple as possible. And that's ultimately how I got involved with digital marketing because I'm like, it is as much as there was no plan because I'm naturally gifted in those areas. I was able to kind of coalesce all these things and kind of put
Okay.
it together. And it just sort of, again, following the flow and just sort of drifting and picking up the momentum. And that's where it led me. And I'm glad it did.
Very cool. Very cool. What was your eureka moment when it came to digital marketing?
I think the biggest thing was when I realized that I don't have to be the expert in everything. I don't have to know like I don't have to know how graphic design is done on a granular level and all that stuff. I need to know where to find the people to do that. And as long as I can put a good team together around me,
Gotcha.
and I can get the people in the right rooms and stuff like that, that's really the important thing.
Yeah, that's the idea of being a business owner, right?
Yep,
That's it in a nutshell.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's to to anybody listening. It's definitely have an idea of what makes good copywriting or makes good graphic design, or at least be able to kind of do it yourself, so that when you're asking questions to hire somebody, you at least have an idea of whether they're good or not, instead of just throwing it
Yeah,
at the wall and see if it sticks.
yeah, you definitely want to be able to recognize quality. You don't necessarily have to be able to produce it yourself, but you need to be able to recognize it, and that is key. You're right about that.
Yeah. Um, but the unfortunate part is, normally when you start out, you don't have the funds or the knowledge to pick out the right people, and then to be able to pay them. So you end up having to try to do it all yourself. Excuse me.
Yeah, you do. I mean, and I think it goes for whatever you want to do, whether it's digital marketing or anything else. There is going to be some trial and error at the beginning because you don't have the experience and you don't have the funds. So your only option is to really kind of like make alliances with other newbies,
Yep.
and some of them are going to pan out and some of them aren't. I mean, let's be honest. And
Yeah.
you have to be able to take those lumps and learn from that.
Yeah. Definitely a pretty steep curve on the on the knowledge there. If you could work with any particular niche or service, which one would you pick?
So I right now I typically work mostly with coaches, business coaches, life coaches, all that stuff, and mainly it's because I am a self improvement junkie,
Okay.
and so if I had to, if I was going to give a 30-minute talk or something like that on this type of on this subject, it would really be about meeting people where they are, because I think a lot of resistance when you're doing sales is often fear based. So if
Okay.
you can meet people where they are, that's just one extra step that they don't have to take, and they kind of feel like you get them, and
Yep.
that's really what it's about. You want to make people comfortable. So that would be my biggest. I could probably do an hour talk on that. Like to me, that's just probably the most important thing in the world is just meet people where they are.
Yeah, and that's a big thing when it comes to being able to pick a niche. Is a lot of people want to go out after the doctors and the chiropractors and dentists and stuff, which they could be good clients and high dollar clients, but one, it's always easier to really niche down because there's a lot less competition, and two, if you know a lot about you know abstract pottery, you're going to be able to speak their language.
And that's it, right? Like if you're comfortable in that, like for me, if I was going to go after dentists or chiropractors or something, there'd be a lot of legwork I'd have to put into like research
Yeah,
and like that. And whereas this kind of stuff, I'm already in that world, so it takes another layer of resistance away from me, and it keeps me in my comfort zone too, which is also good for them.
yeah, yeah. Um, Underwater basket weaving. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah, well, I mean that too. I mean, I know a lot about that as well, but
What was the lowest moment for you when you were trying to get things up and running?
wow. When I was doing copywriting, I bought into this program,
Yep.
and it was you see it all the time, and but it was make 0 to 10K in 90 days,
Yep.
and it's like, okay, well, in 3 months I'm going to be making 10K a month. That sounds great, and it was all freelance stuff, by the way, too. So it's not like you're working for an agency or something. You're doing this as a freelancer, and it was there was a promise too, like, well, and if you don't hit it in 90 days you'll get personal coaching, until you do. And I'm like, well, I can't lose.
Yeah.
And well, it didn't happen. I mean, it was like 6 months, 9 months, and I made nothing, absolutely nothing. And at that point my wife got pregnant again, and I'm thinking, well, this is not good. We're having a second baby. I can't bring any money in, and like you said, on a single income, things are tight. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, I don't, it's not like I can go get another coach. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And that was probably the scariest moment of my life at that point, because I didn't know how I was going to provide for my family. And that is a huge thing for me. I do not, of all the things you could say about me, I do not want to be that guy that does not provide for my children. So
Yeah.
that was probably my lowest point.
Yeah. That's I feel that. I feel that. Um, I don't. This podcast isn't a plug. It's not. It's not sponsored by Atlas Agency Launch Lab, but you're in the program. You you seem to be enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
You talk a little bit about your process so far. Maybe what makes it different than your this last course you're talking about.
Yes, I think the biggest difference is the atmosphere, and it's one thing I always tell people too, like, and I really didn't realize this until I spent more time on Facebook, but there's 8 billion people in this world, so you can be yourself, and there will be a tribe of people
Right.
that you can relate to and that will relate to you. And I don't know if it was luck. I don't know, serendipity, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
But with Atlas, I fit in very well. Um, all of my questions regardless of whether they seem stupid or repetitive or what have you, I didn't feel guilty or dumb for asking. It was a very welcoming, very nurturing atmosphere as far as uh, bringing you along in this field. And I think that's probably been the biggest key for me, is the ability to be myself and kind of be a little vulnerable.
Okay.
You know, when you're in a group coaching setting, you don't always have that ability. You know,
Yeah.
because there's 10 other people that have questions to ask as well.
Right.
And I mean, I'm a little cognizant of that. I don't want to take up everybody else's time, you know, focusing directly on me. And it just, for whatever reason, like I said, it's almost, you know, this is my tribe. I mean, I really don't know a better way to say it. You know, it just fits.
Good. Good. All right. We're going to move on. If you go back to your 18-year-old self, and sorry, let me try again. If you go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Do not go to school based on the job market. Go to school to learn what you're passionate about. So that way you don't have to start over again when you're 42 years old.
Sure.
I've always been a creative person. I've you know, and I was always told there's no money in that. You know, go, you know, math, electronics, all that stuff. You know, so that's what I did, and that was a huge mistake because I never really cared for it. I just did it because I was supposed to. So there was no passion in it, and it's like anything. If you're not passionate about it, you're only, at best, you're going to be average. You know,
Gotcha.
so that would be my advice to not just my 18-year-old self, but to any 18-year-old out there. Whatever you're passionate about, go for it.
Awesome. But here you go. So, should I go spend $100,000 on a degree for underwater basket weaving, or do you think that would be?
Well, if you're really passionate about it,
What's the one thing about digital marketing that you didn't expect?
I would say how quite simple it is.
Okay.
But I want to caveat that because it's simple and easy are not the same thing. And so it's very simple, but there's a lot of moving parts to it, and they move rapidly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it kind of difficult. So, you know, you can break it down into all these little steps. It's a lot like advanced mathematics. At the end of the day, it's still addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It's just a lot of steps.
Right.
So, and that's kind of what blew me away about it.
Right. And all of a sudden, it's like, when do they start putting letters in this?
Yeah. Why are we solving for X anyway? Nobody cares.
What is a common myth about digital marketing that you found?
I think how competitive it is. I mean, I've never seen a full episode of the show, but like Mad Men on AMC, you know,
Okay.
and all these shows, anything that talks about advertising and marketing and stuff, it's always about how competitive it is and how everybody's undercutting each other and stuff. And I mean, it's true to a certain degree, but it's been my experience that there's far more collaboration than there is competition.
Yeah, and I mean, just the sheer amount of business owners that still need the stuff. I mean, there's no if if you fall into the same niche, you know, there could definitely be some competition. But if you're willing to spread out and go into the blue ocean, right?
Mm-hmm.
The the low hanging fruit is there for you to take.
And even that, even in the same niche, I mean, there's just such an abundance, and I think that's really the key. It's the mindset and how you approach it. You know, things are either scarce or they're abundant, and I choose to think of it as the latter. So, you know, I personally don't have a problem helping people, even if they're working in the same niche as me, because I can still learn something from them.
Oh,
And
sure.
you know, so, and I think that was probably the biggest eye opener to me.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely always good to help somebody out instead of burning bridges. we've worked with our fair share of people that would mistakenly uh, opt in for the short money, and then you know because they can stab you in the back and get it quick. But we found that if you want to play the long game, you really got to, right, like you said, you really got to work with people.
And it's weird, as big as this field is, it's really a small world in the
Yep.
sense that people kind of know and talk to each other, and you can develop a reputation, good or bad, pretty quickly. And it's, that's up to you how you want to do it. But I agree with you. I it's a long game, and there's no reason to, you're going to make $1,000 to pass up $10,000 later on. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a lot of people get into this because they're promised all these riches and the
Like
10 grand
10K
in
in
90
90
days,
days.
and 90 days, they're struggling, and they're if I just take this client from this guy, because I talk bad about him, I get it, and then you just might earn yourself a reputation.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's no good.
If people want to outsource technical or other parts of their agency, what should they start with, and who would you recommend they outsource to?
So with a question like this, I mean, it's different for every agency owner.
Yeah,
Everybody's gonna have a little different answer. And a lot of people are going to tell you that you should learn everything you can, and and then outsource stuff. And I mean, I get that, but if you're starting out, there's a lot that you don't know, and you're going to take a lot of time. You're going to spend all your time learning, and excuse me, not enough time doing.
yeah,
So I'm kind of the opposite here. I would suggest that you outsource anything that you're not good at, and you learn it along the way from the people that you're outsourcing to. Because outsource doesn't mean ignore it. It just means that you're having somebody else fulfill it. And even if you pick the wrong person to outsource it to, you're going to learn from that, and you're
yeah,
going to learn what not to do. So I'm a big proponent of that. Outsource everything you can. And if you had to outsource something to somewhere, I mean, Atlas Online Solutions is probably a great place to start.
Well, I appreciate it.
For sure.
I think we do pretty good work. Yeah, there's the idea that a lot of people get, you know, they just learn and learn and learn, and oh, I don't know enough about this, and it's imperfect action is better than perfect inaction,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
And the idea of um, you know jumping in with both feet, and it's gonna get it's gonna get scary, right? It's gonna get intimidating, and you're gonna get in over your head, but
You can absolutely get burned by paralysis by analysis. I mean, there is so much information coming at you. It's like drinking out of a fire hose.
yeah,
So what I try to do, I try to pick the part that I'm focusing on right now, and I block out the rest of the noise. And if it's something that I need to come back to, I will. But for the most part, I do one thing, I do it well, and I move on.
yeah, good. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now, and how are you tackling it?
Well, we are growing right now,
There you
and
go.
that's exactly what we want. Um, but like I said, things move rapidly.
Yep.
So we're balancing multiple clients while trying to find others.
There you
And
go.
that's a good problem to have. It's quite frankly, it's a new problem to have. I mean, I've had clients before. I've never had to juggle multiple ones while still keeping my outreach going. So
Sure.
it's something that I have a lot of support here, and it's going to work itself out. And like I said, of all the problems to have, I mean, this is a good one, and
Yeah.
you know, and I'll take it. There's no, I'm not going to complain about that. So I'm very happy about that, and I'm just gonna keep doing my best.
Yeah. Was it? Excuse me. Pick your hard. Everything's hard. Pick your hard.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know what it's like to have no clients, right? And not know proper ways to do outreach and stuff, and sitting around my house with my computer or my phone or my laptop or my iPad or something, and just sitting there staring at it and taking no action because I don't know what to do. And then it's like, oh my God, I got to feed my kid, but what do I do? And
Right.
that is a problem.
Yeah.
This is okay.
This is good. I'm getting paid. I can be frustrated and paid. That's
Yeah, exactly.
what, excuse me. What's the most important lesson that you learned in the space?
We kind of touched on it a little earlier, but the main thing here is just be yourself because, like I said earlier, there's 8 billion people on this planet, so there is a tribe for you somewhere. You will fit in, so do not fake it. Just be yourself, and you will attract other like-minded individuals. If you fake it, you are going to attract other fake individuals, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. What's the most important personality trait or strength that someone would need to work as an agency head?
So in my experience, I'm going to say you need to be able to take feedback, because you're not going to get it right all the time, and some of it's going to be painful, especially when you're starting out, because when you're starting out, every opportunity seems like it's like your only chance at the brass ring, right? And you miss that, and you're like, well, how do I replicate this? How do I get back to it? But that's going to happen. So you need to be able to kind of look back at the wreckage sometimes,
Yeah.
and put it back together, and you need to be able to make decisions, and you got to accept that those decisions sometimes are going to be wrong. And kind of the good news with all of that, though, very few decisions are forever. I mean, most marriages, right? 50% of marriages end in divorce. I mean, tattoos, you can get laser removal now. So like, even nothing is forever. You make a decision, you screw up, try again. So that's probably the biggest thing.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, if you come into this and think that you're just going to do it right, what else have you ever done in your life that you've never done before that you're just great at right out of the bat? Right? There's no logical reason that you wouldn't fail and that you wouldn't stumble.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's
you got to block out the noise too. I mean, it's not that people are actively rooting against you, but when you're doing something like this, especially me, like just I'm switching. I went from a career to doing this. It's like,
yeah,
well, man, you threw away a career and you got kids. Like, what are you doing? So there's a lot of people who don't necessarily understand this, and
yeah,
they mean well. They're not rooting against me. They want the best for me and my family, but they don't understand. And you have to be able to understand where they're coming from, but block out that negativity, for lack of a better word. So I guess a thick skin would be part of it too.
yeah. I'll just touch on that. One of the things that I was kind of thinking about lately is this idea of like, oh, you went to college and you got this degree and you're gonna throw it away to go, do this job or work here, and it's there's so much that you learn along the way in the lessons that you've been taught or taught yourself, and the calluses that you get from doing this stuff that will transfer over into something like this. So I mean, if you're in, even if you went through med school and everything and you're a doctor and you just hate being a doctor, it wouldn't be throwing that away to go and jump into a space like digital marketing, because you learn the skills of being tough and being able to study and doing all this stuff. So you're throwing away the future of being in medicine, but you've now been able to get an outside perspective that maybe somebody else doesn't have, and I help you succeed in this space.
And that's like, even coming from a technical background, I worked on anesthesia machines, other life support equipment and all that. And I would get called into OR rooms during surgery if something was going wrong with the equipment. And I would have to communicate with these doctors and nurses in their language, and nurse speak and doctor speak. And that's something that kind of stuck with me. It's like, well, the big portion of my job wasn't fixing the stuff. A lot of times I can't, right? If the patient's hooked up to the machine, there's not a whole lot I can do. So a
Sure.
lot of it is communicating and making sure that they understand that, here's the workaround for it. So if I can communicate, why can't I do this? That's, at the end of the day, that's what this is.
Yeah. Awesome. Who have been your top 3 biggest influences in your digital marketing journey?
Well, Sheena and you folks here at Atlas are, are up there, and Justin Goff
Okay.
and Kiala Kanai, I would say, are probably my top 3.
Awesome. Very cool. What is one lesson entrepreneurship has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life?
Your circumstances are nobody's fault but your own, and I don't mean that as a negative,
Yeah.
because it can also be a good thing, And what's really important about that is taking ownership,
Yeah.
because if you own something, you can change it. You
Yep.
can't change something that somebody else owns. So, make sure that you understand you own your circumstances. You are the author of your own story.
Yep.
Don't let somebody else write it for you. And as an entrepreneur, it's not like you can go, oh, well, my boss passed me over for promotion. No, you didn't earn it, So
Yeah.
it really kind of shines that light on it. It really takes away all your excuses, and all this, oh, well, I'm not going to try because I'm only getting a 2% raise this year. Well, you want more than a 2% raise? You have the opportunity now to do something about it.
Right.
So,
yeah. If you really want to go to the extreme, everything's your fault.
mm-hmm.
Something somebody else does that works for you, and they do it wrong, that's your fault, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, either you didn't communicate with them properly, or you didn't manage them properly. You didn't check their work when it was done. I mean, you're right. It's all your fault.
Yep. Yeah. So, and it's definitely a really weird mind shift change. And whenever I mention that to other people, it's sort of like like you have to not get defensive. It's like, I'm not saying like you're a bad person, but like everything that goes on here, good or bad, right, is your fault. You are the you're the.
That's a great way. That's a great way, by the way, to if you're in a crowd, to tell who the entrepreneurs are and who aren't. Just look at them and go, "It's your fault." The entrepreneurs will go, "I know," and the other people go, "What do you mean?"
Right.
So,
no, it was their fault. Okay. Yeah. Right. On that sort of path, what is one thing about being an agency head that almost no one agrees with you about?
I sort of touched on this earlier too. I don't always necessarily care to know how the sausage is made. I, I get understanding the process, like what we were talking about with graphic design and stuff. But I don't want to be bothered with the minutia of it. Like, I don't care if they use Adobe or whatever they're doing. I want to see the product.
Right.
And I'm more of a big picture guy. So I'm going to put my faith into people around me. And this goes back to things being my fault, because if I put the wrong people in place, I'm going to get poor results. But it's just, there's so much that can go into everything, and you can get really granular about every aspect of this. So, like, the way I see it, you got to kind of pick the one spot that you're really passionate about, and you have to put a good team around you for everything else. And again, I'm not saying don't learn how things get done, but like, I don't care about the granular level. I just want to, make sure I got good people that do what they do, and I want to be able to trust them, and kind of move on to the next job. Because if I were to go that deep, I would end up creating a 60-hour-a-week job for myself, and that kind of flies in the face of the whole freedom thing that we're trying to do, right? Like, if I wanted to work 60 hours a week, I would have stayed in biomed.
There you go. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And that's, in order to grow and scale, you can't be a micromanager, right? You have to be able to actually let go and trust the people that you have hired to do their job, and just sort of have an overall view of a more of an aerial view of the company as a whole.
That's a really good way to, like a 30,000-foot view.
Yep. Right. Yeah. You're there to make big decisions, not like, oh, okay, we should use this font.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
What's your favorite productivity hack for entrepreneurs?
I like to go for a walk.
Okay.
I find that, I mean, we sit in front of, I have 3 monitors here in front of me right now, and this
Okay.
is typically how I work. And you can get burned out with that. And just getting up and whether I take my dogs with me or I just go by myself or whatever, just kind of getting out in nature. And it's amazing what that does for the creative process, because you just kind of let your mind wander. I'll even go so far. I'll put my AirPods on noise canceling, so
Okay.
I'm just there in silence, and walking down a trail, and I just kind of let my thoughts play in my head, and it's a good reset. It's sort of like a mind dump.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely with a module in the launch lab, number 8, I think. It's about the going from a profession that is maybe more labor intensive, or just something that doesn't put you behind a screen. If you don't physically and mentally prepare for that, it's going to drag you down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I'm just going to sit behind a desk at a computer. How hard is that? And physically, it's not. But like, ask your chiropractor in like 6 months, what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And
You end up.
right. Make sure mark which belt loop you're using, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
right. All of a sudden, your pants don't fit. So
yeah. You're right. Yeah.
What underrated tools are indispensable for your job?
I have a zero gravity chair in my backyard, and
There you go.
this time of year, the weather down here is. It must have been what the weather was like in Eden before the fall. I mean, it is magnificent. There is no humidity. There's a gentle breeze. It's like, high 70s, low 80s. And fortunately, my Wi-Fi works out in my backyard. So
There you go.
any chance I get, I take my laptop and I go sit out there, and I work out there when I can.
There you go. Yeah, and then what's it, just all summer you just kind of got to stay inside so you can enjoy the fall?
Yeah, it's a little backwards. I mean, now the cool thing is, like, in the summer it does roast down here. It's like 110 degrees and stuff, but I'm like 35 minutes from the beach, and then we have some awesome lakes up by us. So
There you go.
we can go swimming and things like that to kind of cool off. But yeah, it does get pretty brutal down here in July, especially.
It's like 110 and 98% humidity. It's like you should get out of the shower when you look outside.
Dude, that was when we first moved down here, and I drove my car down here with everything, and I got out of my car. It was 105 degrees with 98% humidity. I could not breathe. I was like, well, I wasn't expecting. I've never experienced that in my life, and it took me like 2 weeks to be able to walk my dogs around the block. It was
What other occupation besides digital marketing would you like to try? You mentioned pizzeria.
Yeah, I would. I think, when I get to a point that I have some play money to kind of invest and kind of throw around, there will be a pizzeria or a brewery in my future.
Nice.
Maybe not as a hands-on day-to-day kind of thing, but definitely where my recipes will be in place and all of that, and I have a say in how things go. I do think that will happen.
Perfect. So we're I don't like to push these too long. I like to make them accessible for anybody dropping by. I know I don't want to jump on like a 2-hour long live just to listen to people just yap for 20 minutes here and there about nothing I'm interested in. So I'd keep it nice and short. We're on about 40 minutes right now. So
okay,
where can listeners find you online?
I am on Facebook. Our website's going to be launching soon. That'll be guidedgrowthsyndicate.com. And I do have a very nascent YouTube channel that we're going to aggressively start growing here shortly.
Awesome.
But the main place to find me right now would be Facebook. I do have a LinkedIn profile too, but Facebook is probably the quickest way to get a hold of me.
Facebook, awesome. And I will put those links in the comments section once this video is done.
Okay.
And how can listeners support you and your work?
We do accept referrals. They are
Yes.
actually our favorite kind of clients, aside from repeat ones. So, so yeah. Anything along those lines, even just drop by and say hi. It's always good to hear encouragement.
There you go. Yeah. And for anybody listening, referrals are probably the warmest kind of lead that you can get because they're trusting whoever referred them that you're the best or whatever. So they come in and you don't even really have to sell them because they're already like, all right, John said he's good. So, let's just do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. For sure.
So, all right. So without further ado, my name is Zach. I'm with Atlas Online Solutions and Atlas Agency Launch Lab. This has been another episode of our podcast, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, Zach. It was a pleasure.